Listen, to start with, 4 in a row you're going for, 7th final in a row. Even that in itself is some achievement, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I suppose it's a good measure of consistency, which obviously is important. And yeah, there's obviously lots of experience in the team at this stage. Started out with not a great run with the ones that we lost, but we've managed to turn that around and kind of continue with still making final appearances and now managing to turn them into to winning ones.
Is there no talk of 4 in a row though? Is it all just about this one?
Yeah, look, I think this season is very different in its own right. So it's been a strange season at that. So I don't think it really it's a completely different time of year even to be preparing for a final. So it definitely feels as a standalone one. And yeah, I think year on year, it's every year you come back, it's different in how the team is and how the setup is. So yeah, I don't think that the stuff that has gone before doesn't really count for much when you come back. So I think it very much stands on its own.
Talk to me about this strange season, because how was it managed from a training point of view? Was it very well managed in that even though you didn't know whether you'd be coming back to play a championship or not, you almost still had to be ready to go at any point? How was it to keep yourself motivated and the rest of the team find it? And is this, I suppose, reaping your rewards to see all the hard work that you had to maybe do on your own?
Yeah, I think there was a balance really between, I mean, initially we tried to sort of, keep things going with Zoom and the rest of it and doing bits and pieces for sort of, 3-4 weeks. And at that stage, it became very apparent that this wasn't going to be a short-term thing. So you kind of had to dial it back and try and make sure that people were mentally fresh if we did get to come back. So it was very much sort of training to keep yourself mentally and physically in a state for yourself as opposed to being for the team, because we just didn't really know if things were going to come back. So it wasn't very prescribed. It was available as you wanted to use it really, in terms of what we put in place. Just try to keep the connection at least once or twice a week in terms of checking in as a group. But pretty soon I suppose people went back to clubs and just kind of played away through that, and again just tried to maintain a sort of a connection once a week just to make sure that we were linked in and ready to fire when we came back in September. It was a very short window into a very, very competitive first match with Donegal. So obviously for us, normally we hit one match in Leinster over the last couple of years anyway, and then have a break where you kind of are waiting to go into the All-Ireland stages. So it's very much scaling up on a much slower pace, whereas this year it was pretty much 6 or 7 weeks when you get together to try and have everything working as best you can. So I don't think it was an absolutely hit the ground running performance when we played Donegal, but they're a super team and we knew we'd be really challenged by that game. So it was really encouraging just to kind of get over that first hurdle and try and build from that.
Moving on to Cork, it feels like you almost kind of took over from them when it comes to the best team in the country, and obviously they'll be looking to try and take that title back off you. What have you made of them so far this season, and do you think they're real challengers?
Yeah, I suppose I haven't seen a whole pile of them. There's obviously been less matches this year. So I think it's there's very little you can read into from league form. So it's really just the championship games that they've played. And I think, same as ourselves, they've been on an upward curve. They've probably built very nicely into the final that they're going into. They had a good game against Kerry anyway from what I saw. I haven't seen the Cavan game yet, and obviously a tough challenge against Galway at the weekend. So they look to be firing at the right time of the season, going into form.
And listen, final question for me, just going back to last weekend with their match against Galway and obviously the controversy that was surrounded that. What was your point of view on it?
Yeah, look, I suppose I'm only going to speak briefly enough on this, given we're talking about an All-Ireland final, and women's sport probably gets a little unfair time as it is. That we should be probably discussing what's happened on the pitch, and fortunately that wasn't afforded to go in Cork, despite being an All-Ireland semi-final. And I think it was a hugely disappointing situation for both teams, and I think players deserve respect, and they deserve more than what happened, and particularly in the current environment, and for their families, who aren't even able to watch at home. And obviously there's a number of contributing factors, and people were doing what they thought was best as the situation unfolded. And you obviously hope it won't occur again, and sport has made huge strides and lots of good work being done. But look, there are standards that need to be upheld at this level, and that didn't happen. And we have to have moved past accepting that. Just accepting our lot and just getting on with things. So I think it was particularly disappointing that having a completely unacceptable outcome wasn't acknowledged in the aftermath. And questions I think need to be asked of various factors in the timeline and parties involved, so that lessons can be learned and the sport can move on a better footing.
That's great, Sinead. Best of luck.
Thanks a lot, Will. Will, if you want to ask 3 uninterrupted questions, by all means.
Hi, Sinead. First one would be your own fitness at the moment. How are you looking ahead of this All-Ireland final?
Yeah, good. Training's going well, so hoping to be in contention for selection next week.
In terms of getting ready for this final then, you had a tough enough semi-final against Armagh. I would imagine that's pretty much the perfect tune-up ahead of the final itself.
Yeah, it was. It was, it was a fast game. It was, without being extremely open, both defences I think were tested by the quality of the attack that was there. So I think we've obviously points that we need to work on from that. But it's good to get that kind of a test, and we've had 3 weeks to be working on that. So building nicely to the final, hopefully.
You've been regularly in All-Ireland finals over the last decade, as you mentioned at the outset, going for 4 in a row. We Jack McCaffrey talking to us on Off the Ball this week, and he was just explaining about his own walking away from the Dublin men's panel, and he was saying that, after a while, that kind of pressure and that grind, then when you add in work and everything around it, it gets very difficult. Have you found it hard at any point over the last 10 years to be coming back where you're in a team expecting to get to an All-Ireland final each year?
No, I don't think it's a pressure. I mean, probably when you're winning at that level consistently, as they have. I mean, they've now gone for 6 in a row. I don't think we've ever felt a pressure from having won. That, as I said, we don't see the season before as being a force to put pressure on us for the following year. Probably this year, as I said, with the Donegal match, there was a lot of pressure on that match because it nearly felt like a knockout match. Straight out the gate, and after the year that everyone had and not knowing was it going to happen and being such a long year, I think that was maybe a little bit more pressure. But look, I suppose the only other time around that really had considerations was before I suppose Mick came back in 2017. At that stage with a new manager coming in, it was probably a natural break to think, having not had success and giving it everything, was it the time to do something different. But obviously glad I didn't make that decision at the time.
If I could just sneak in one more before we go. This week has obviously sparked a lot of discussion about the potential for Camogie, the LGFA and the GAA at some point maybe coming together under the same umbrella. As a player, is that something you'd be supportive of, or would you have a strong opinion on it?
Yeah, look, as I said, this probably isn't the forum to be having it, but I do think a proper conversation does need to take place. And I suppose, look, we see the success of the one club model. I think it's something that we just need to explore, and I'd be very much in favour of that, but probably not the time to be going through it in detail at this stage.
Yep. Cheers, Sinead.